Welcome to PropLinq AI podcast. I'm Stuart Quintal, the founder of PropLinq AI, where we help real estate businesses scale smarter with AI systems that turn leads into deals and reduce the admin drag on teams. Today, I'm joined by Tom Castro, the founder of WhoZoo, a company shaking up the mass market for commercial property in the UK. At WhoZoo, they believe that owners of garages, shops, pubs, and all those underserved mid-market value commercial assets deserve a new kind of service. One that's transparent, tech savvy, and actually motivated to get deals done. Tom's bringing a fresh mindset to commercial agency, and in this episode, we dig into how he's building WhoZoo and give more to landlords, buyers, and agents alike. Let's get into it. Tom, welcome.
Hi, Stuart. How you doing?
Good, mate. Let's sort of get into things. Let's kick off with your background. You mentioned to me in an earlier call that you're a commercial agent early on. But how did that lead to starting WhoZoo?
Yeah, it's all I've ever done. Grew up in Lewisham in southeast London and went to study real estate at Reading, which it was interesting because you get to see different types of people, and there's a lot of people who go to that type of a course whose goal and their plan is to go and join Savills, go and join CBRE, and be part of a international business and advise on, German retail investment portfolios and all this sort of stuff, right? And I worked out quite quickly that it wasn't really for me, just for many different reasons. Did internships at sort of several of those sorts of businesses, and it just wasn't what I wanted to do. Always been somewhat entrepreneurial. And so my view was, I want to do the thing that is going to enable me to start a business as quickly as possible. So rather than becoming a chartered surveyor, I joined a small commercial agency business and was sort of thrown into the deep end, all focused on low and mid market commercial stock. It essentially a estate agency, but for commercial and development stock. And I did that for 2 years, and then I set up my first business. So I would have been 23. Which was an acquisitions business. So the intention there was no brand, no website really, and it was I had a handful of clients who wanted to buy opportunities, and so I would run around London, sort of literally knocking on doors. This was before there was an abundance of sort of tech products that can help you with identifying opportunities and stuff. So it was like feet on the ground sort of thing. And that was good, actually. Like it was a good little business. But as I say, then the tech changed, and that enabled more people to be able to do that. But also, what we found was, as our clients' requirements changed, we had like 5 clients, that was it. But they had a lot of money to spend between them. As their requirements changed, some of the smaller stock that we would generate was too small for them. So we were creating leads, but we didn't know what to do with them, or these clients didn't want to buy them. And because we'd created this concept of like not wanting a website and no digital presence in it, kind of trying to be bespoke and exclusive and all this stuff, we were just putting these leads in the bin essentially. So then I set up a sort of sister business, let's say, like a sibling business called City and Counties Commercial, which was a traditional commercial agency business there to pick up the smaller leads. And then as that kind of developed, it became a bit more interesting, and we were getting a lot of small opportunities into the business, and we were getting a reasonable amount of revenue from them, and felt that there was much more scale in that side of the business than trying to buy sites for 5 people. And so we looked at what kind of a format we could create that was scalable outside of the patch of sort of London and the southeast that we were working in, and then with that decided to work on the basis of a self-employed agency business focused on the low to mid end of the market, and therefore we rebranded as WhoZoo, and that was in January 2023, and so we've been running as WhoZoo for just under 3 years now.
All right. Now, if you could do a quick pitch, like what exactly is WhoZoo and how is it then different from the traditional commercial agency?
We really care about the low to mid market stock. That's our elevator pitch. We're the agent at the lowest end of the market from a value perspective. Who cares? You tend to find that if you drew a graph, that quality of service and value of property go hand in hand. So the more valuable property is, the more senior the person at CBRE is gonna look at it. But what that means is at the lowest end of the market, the service provision is quite poor, and that's what we're trying to challenge.
Yep. Now you said you're building you built a self-employed model in commercial real estate, which is quite rare. I guess even in the UK, it's quite rare. But what made you bet on that structure?
We looked at a traditional branch by branch model and felt like it was going to be too expensive, too time consuming. And I just had this vision of myself driving around the UK, probably spent on the M25, going from each one of the branches. And, it's just not, let's say it's 25 branches, 25 leases, 25 branch managers. It just didn't feel like that was the right format of a business. Whereas if we lent more heavily into the tech side of things, the idea was that we should be able to still deliver the customer the service they require, but do we need high street presence? Do we need that 25? I just don't believe that we did. And so then we looked at what else happens in the rest of the world, so UAE or America or Europe, and self-employed resi agency was quite common. So we just lent into that, and from my perspective, it's just trying to do something different. There's a lot that's great about the commercial property sector in the UK, and there's a lot that's wrong with it. And I think, why not challenge it? Just because the RICS say something has to be done a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that that's right or right for 2025.
Yep. Now, something that sort of stuck with me, I guess, as part of your business model, I guess, you said before you rebranded as WhoZoo, you were generating a lot of leads in for that sort of the side of the market. So are you still sort of like a lead gen business that now services the self-employed model?
100%. So as far as I'm concerned, as the founder, as the owner of the business, you can make a solid argument to say that we're a lead gen and marketing business first, and it just so happens that the service we're delivering is commercial agency. I spend more of my time talking about leads, management of leads, lead cultivation, lead generation, than I do talking about individual assets. And I think that's one of the things that makes us different from any other commercial agencies. I suspect that's not the case. There is no line, and maybe it's because we're still a small business, but there is no line here between like the agency side of things and the marketing and lead gen side of things. They are completely interlinked as far as I'm concerned. Whereas I think if you looked at a bigger commercial agency business, you'd have the people delivering the service over here and the people creating the brand and creating the marketing, creating the leads over here. And I think that there can often be a big gap. And so we are, that's the be all and end all for us, is our ability to generate good leads and then service them.
Yep. So what's your kind of sales funnel that you're running? Is it digital first? Is it content driven, outbound, SEO, partnerships?
Yeah, we have a multi-channel approach to lead gen. So there's a combination of, I guess, modern methods of marketing, whether that's social media or SEO, PPC, but also some of the kind of old school network driven marketing approach. But what we do, which we've got a lot better at over the last couple of years, is we evaluate everything. So every penny that gets spent on any element of lead gen, we monitor, we review, we work out whether that was value for money. Was the lead good? Was the lead bad? So even if, for example, we're taking someone for a coffee, we do an assessment before that of like, is the purpose of this coffee to create more business? If the answer is yes, then how frequently are we doing that? How much are we spending, and is it worthwhile? As opposed to like doing it just for the sake of it, which is kind of what we used to do. And in the same respect, if we're spending money on Google, if we're spending money on LinkedIn ads or whatever, like what's the ROI on that, and is it worthwhile, and where can we invest our money to get the best return?
That's fascinating to hear that you're tracking, the spend on a coffee and the ROI on that. But which sort of leads, I guess, from a tech side, what are the systems and tools that are making that possible, and also what's making a real difference operationally?
So we've been through quite a few transitions really. So when we launched, actually pre WhoZoo, the rebrand, we were using Salesforce, but we didn't know how to use it. And then we came off of that, and then we started using a an estate agency CRM. I found that, having done some research, that actually at that time commercial agency CRMs were poor, very poor. I'm sure that's changed now, and I know that there's a few others in the market. But because of the unique structure that we have, every platform that we used was sort of like, it would be good in one element and then let us down somewhere else. And that's not their fault. That's our fault. We came off of Salesforce, as I say, then we used something slightly different, which we've now come off, and we've really been through a journey. And only probably in the last 6 months have we landed on what I consider to be the best platform that we've got and the route forward, and that is essentially utilizing Airtable in a CRM format.
Yep.
The beauty of it is, we're not necessarily tech people here. We obviously work with consultants, but basic automations, whether they're internal or whether they're marketing led, we can do. We're smart enough to be able to put those kind of automations together, as opposed to like anything overly complex. But like I always wanted it to work. I always wanted to work from a dashboard that was almost like a trading desk. And all of the CRMs that we worked with were too clunky for us. Whereas what we have now on Airtable is the closest thing to what I had in my head, because we deal with such a high volume of leads and inquiries. No individual asset is that critical to us. It's a combination of them all together. So we don't sit there ever really with like one property up going like, right, how do we get this particular property sold? It's like, right, we had 100 leads come in last week. What type of leads were they? Which part of the funnel are they going into? And then what are the next stages of that? And we also use HubSpot. So our Airtable then talks to HubSpot. But we took HubSpot before we took Airtable, and we were really like HubSpot. I don't know if you've used, I'm sure you have, but like,
yeah.
you can just go down a rabbit hole of like, infinite cost and infinite headache of how to use HubSpot. But what we found was plugging Airtable in, like, plugged the gap of what we were missing.
Yep, nice. Is that helping you track the agent performance and deal flow a lot easier? And
Yeah.
how do the business owners find that using those systems? Because they're not off. Some of them aren't off the shelf. Like HubSpot, I guess, is acting as your UI. But yeah, Airtable, I guess, from some of these business owners, commercial real estate agents, probably aren't used to interacting with different Airtable as a platform.
Yeah, so they don't actually use Airtable. That's just an internal thing for us. They still use the estate agency CRM that we were using previously, which is perfectly functional for them, because they don't, imagine if we've got 30, 35 agents, they all have, let's say, I don't know, 50 leads each. We have 50 times 35 agents worth of leads, plus all of the leads that we haven't allocated, or they haven't been the timing hasn't been right for them, so we've kept them before allocating them out. So this is what I mean. If we were just running the business off a normal CRM, I didn't think there was the sort of back end was quite weak in order for us to use it. So the estate agency CRM that we used was sort of perfectly fine for agents' use, but for what we were trying to achieve, which was like, we want to run our marketing, internal automations, and the agents, and to be able to communicate to the agents over it, it was, Airtable has sort of been able to plug into everything that we use, and that we've been missing that. And so it's super cool. We love it.
Yep. So I guess that's been over the last 6 to 12 months that you've implemented Airtable.
Yeah.
What are the other bottlenecks that are holding you back from scaling faster?
Oh God, how long have you got? I mean, a lazy one for me to say is market conditions, because fundamentally, if we were selling more buildings, earning more commission, we'd have more money to reinvest in growth. It's a tricky market out there, but that's a bit of a cop out for me to use that as an excuse. It's speed. We want optimum efficiency. That something that I've become probably in line with when we took Airtable, but something that I've become really aware of or really obsessed with is our efficiency per lead or our efficiency per deal. So let's say, for example, that the market's changed in commercial property and every deal takes twice as long as it used to. Okay. So let's say that from start to finish, it used to take 3 months and now it takes 6 months, which broadly speaking is how we see it. What I want to make happen in the business is, if that is just the nature of what happens, and there's certain elements of that we just can't control. I can't control how a lawyer works and what they're prepared to do. But let's say that over the course of the 3 month the period that we used to run, I'm making this bit up. Let's say that we used to spend 30 hours over that 3 months in order to execute a sale. What we can't let happen is we can't let that 30 hours become 60 hours because it's taking 6 months. So if it takes 6 months, it still needs to take 30 hours worth of work. Okay. It might just be that that's spread over a longer period of time because the market's slower, there's more due diligence required, the solicitors are weaker or poor or whatever, blah, blah, blah. From our perspective, it's really important that if it is going to take longer, it's not going to take a lot more effort. And that way, we need to be able to monitor that. And that's quite challenging to get that information. So like speed and efficiency is absolutely critical, especially as we're working in the lower end of the market. So we don't have the luxury of all of our fees are 6 figures. So if we're doing a deal and the fee's 5K or 10K, we need to make sure that we are as profitable as we can be on that 5K or 10K. The second that, and it, we're pretty on it in terms of like knowing where there's a tipping point of actually a deal has become unprofitable for us, which happens all the time. But we try to be on top of that, and we try to understand that as a business.
Okay, so fixing, if those things, market conditions are very tough to sort of judge, but I guess internal processes and operations is something that you can control. But what's on for the next 12 to 18 months? What does growth look like for WhoZoo?
Well, we've made some changes. We've made some changes over the last couple of months where we've identified a little bit clearer what we want out of our agents, or rather, perhaps from an agent profile perspective, how we intend to recruit moving forward. There was a time where our belief was that what we needed was 200, 250 agents. And I suppose I don't believe that anymore. I think we need a much smaller number, but of really solid people. So for us, it's consolidating our agent numbers into a easier to manage structure, so we can give more opportunity to better people to enable them to earn more. We don't want a load of people just about doing okay. We want a small number of people doing really, really well. And so for us, it's we probably learned that the hard way, and so it's a case of now implementing that over the next 12 to 18 months.
Okay, so like with that, then what are the metrics you're looking at to help sort of solve some of that problem? Or help
okay, so key metrics for us are, it's all around essentially it's all around the conversion of a lead to a deal, but obviously there's stages in the middle of that. So are our leads converting into valuations? Are the valuations converting into instructions? Are the instructions converting into deals? And what rate that we consider to be good, and over what time period are those things, are those metrics being delivered, and that's critical for us. And our ability to assess that in a streamlined way from one central office is what I spend a lot of my time doing, trying to assess. If we've given John 10 leads, I need feedback from John as to whether they're good or bad, but not generic feedback from John's opinion. I need John to give me some structured information. How much, what did we value them at? Did we win the business? What fee rate did we win them at? I need all of that information from John in really like structured way, so that we can assess how effective John is being. Where's John's weak points? Where can we give him some support? John, you're winning loads of instructions, but you're not getting any sales done. That means you can do the first bit, but when it comes to managing inquiries and viewings, you're obviously struggling. So for us, it's they're the key metrics. It's just taking that whole journey from lead to deal. Whilst obviously we want our cost per lead to be as low as possible, so we're constantly evaluating that cost per lead whilst maintaining quality is the key, obviously.
Yeah. Well, look, Tom, like before we wrap up, I'd just like to say I've really enjoyed you sharing some of these things. It's your man after my background, like the data and the tech. You looks like you're using data and tech and experimentation to sort of move fast and also understand the core metrics behind a business, which can often be quite commercial real estate can be quite a legacy, slow moving. Beast of a thing, but it's great to see how you got your lens on growth and how you're building something that actually scales without losing the side of the service. How do people get in touch with you or learn more about WhoZoo?
LinkedIn probably the best place. Generally use it a fair amount. I think I'm easy to find. If you type in Tom Castro WhoZoo, I'm sure I'll come up. And yeah, always keen for any messages or chats or calls with anyone from anywhere. Just like I say, I'm pretty accessible, I think. So always around to chat to people for sure.
Great. I'll share some of those in the show notes
Cool.
when the show goes live. Now, look, thanks again for joining me on the show, and we'll speak to you soon.
No worries. Thanks, Stuart. Take care. Cheers.